It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment.
Unbelievable!
This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And it is a great day to be alive on Westwood One Sports, even if you're an American soccer fan. Welcome in. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Of course, we are always live inside that Westwood One Sports app. That's the way to stay on top of everything. Download it today. Also, live inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, and live across North America on Sirius XM Channel 375, a continent that now no longer has any teams alive in the World Cup it is hosting. With the United States last night in a very ugly, embarrassing way, getting booted from the World Cup by Belgium, joining their neighbors Canada and Mexico on the sidelines as we move closer and closer towards the quarterfinal round of the World Cup. We will break it all down. A very special all-U.S. men's soccer edition of the High Five on the way. John Morosi is going to join us here in the first hour before 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific to talk not just MLB All-Star snubs, but also what he saw in covering last night's game for Sirius XM FC. Martino Puccio, contributor for The Athletic, host of That Milan pod, will talk to us about whether there's hope to come out of this for the U.S. men's national team, or if it's just another reset button. We'll also ask, did a key decision create complacency for this team? A lot of questions to dive into. And on top of it, the NBA offseason continues. Did anybody watch Brad Stevens try to explain himself yesterday in Boston? Whoa. I'll let you hear what he had to say at 10:20 Eastern, 7:20 Pacific. We will play a very special game today. It's not really a game. We're calling it the LeBronchular, which sounds more like a sea animal that climbs up from the deep and pulls you back down into the water when you're not expecting it. But it's just a play on The Bachelor, the LeBronchular. Get it? We will go coast to coast, all over the place, from Cleveland to Miami, Philly to San Francisco, and we will talk to folks in each city today about their chances of landing LeBron James. A very special segment at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific for our friend Bill in Toronto, who can never get enough LeBron, and our daily power rankings of different groups for NFL teams with training camps now just a few weeks away. We'll continue 1 hour from now, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, when we will power rank the best coaching staffs in the NFL. But I knew there would be, at some point, a perfect allegory, a perfect analogy for what we got from the U.S. men's national team last night. And there are a couple out there that will sprinkle in throughout the show. But I'm here to tell you the perfect spot-on analogy for what happened last night happened right outside my home this morning. I got up, came down, turned on the coffee maker, stepped outside for a second to catch some fresh air, and there was my neighbor's dog just taking a giant dump right on my front lawn. And I said, you know what? That is the perfect analogy for how things ended with the U.S. men's national team. Credit to my neighbor. He ran over and he cleaned up after his dog. But still, just the perfect analogy. You wake up this morning, you step outside, and there's your neighbor's dog. Just a huge smash right in the middle of the front yard. I want to be like a dog someday. Not that I want to go to the bathroom outside, but that I just want to have zero cares and just run around doing whatever. U.S. men's national team didn't even run around doing whatever last night. They just kind of stood there and did whatever. So let's get into it. The 5 biggest takeaways, I guess we could say, from last night's U.S. men's national team elimination at the hands of Belgium in the World Cup. Let's get into the high five.
5. They played a better team, and they are better than U.S. when you look at the paper also. And the game, I think this was the worst game that the U.S. did, but they faced also a proper opponent.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the Fox postgame last night, talking about the U.S. playing their worst game and playing it at the worst possible time. The style that had taken them to this point, which was breakneck offense and hoping that your defense just holds together long enough, it didn't work. The dam burst like the great Johnstown flood on the defensive end. And there was no, until Gio Reyna was inserted into the lineup in the second half, and Sebastian Berhalter as well, there really was no urgency to control the game and attack the way they had. Against lesser opponents, which is another good point that Zlatan made there, against lesser opponents earlier in the World Cup, they would have been able to get away with this. I don't think it's an indictment of the style necessarily, but offense does win games and defense does win championships. And this is a team that at the worst possible time collapsed mightily on defense and showed very little interest until their backs were fully against the wall for being the aggressive attackers with the ball that they had been for this entire tournament. That, one of the reasons they fell and fell so mightily last night. Next.
4.
And to concede a goal, which we did when Matt Freese made that mistake. I mean, it was too much of a mountain to climb. And then to add insult to injury, another mistake from Chris Richards at the end. Lukaku gets the goal.
Clint Dempsey on the Fox postgame last night. I understand that the Belgium starting lineup probably averaged a younger age than the U.S. starting lineup. But this was a meltdown that only comes with inexperience at the highest level. And that still has to be looked at. The American squad still has inexperience in the biggest moments at the highest levels as compared to their powerhouse European counterparts. It's not littered with guys who are club stars in Europe. Yeah, there's a few in there, but not like these European teams. Guys who have played like Romelu Lukaku has played something like close to 100 international matches for his squad. The U.S. men's national team melted down in a way. Even the older guys, maybe especially the older guys. Looking at you, Tim Ream. Melted down in a way that indicated a lack of experience at the highest levels last night. That's the only way you fall to pieces the way they did last night. Next.
3.
From the beginning, we didn't connect with the game. We never were on the game, even when we scored and we scored the goal 1-1. We conceded the next action.
U.S. men's national team coach Mauricio Pochettino with Jenny Taft on the field on Fox post-game. Didn't connect to the game. How do you not connect to the game in what is the biggest game of your life and the biggest game for this country in 24 years? Is it on Pochettino? I don't know. I'm going to make an argument in his favor in about 12 minutes. Because I don't know if it necessarily was on him. I'll also make an argument that there may have been one big decision that created a bunch of complacency in this team a little later in the show. I'm not always very big on put it on the coaches for not having them ready unless you see strategic faults. I'm usually more on the side of how is a player not ready for the biggest moment of their life, their professional and maybe personal life. This was their opportunity. And how many of them did we see just standing around? after consistently, like I said off the top, getting after it, game after game, match after match, possession after possession through their first 4 matchups. They looked like they just parachuted in and expected things to work out for them. Like the vibes from the crowd were going to do it for them. I don't know if I can put that on Pochettino. And I will make an argument in his favor coming up, like I said, in about 10 minutes. But next,
2.
You wanted some of those big-time players to step up in big moments. And I got to be honest, I was a bit disappointed with Christian Pulisic. I think whether he wants to be the star of this team or not, we didn't see enough from him in this particular game and really the whole World Cup.
mincing no words, Carly Lloyd on the Fox post-game panel. And I think it's fair to say that Pulisic ain't the guy. Hey, look, Christian Pulisic can be very good. I mentioned it multiple times over the last few days. When the ball is on his foot, it's usually like it's tethered to his toe, and he can make incredible things happen. None of that happened last night. He turned the ball over more than anybody else on the field, both teams combined, and then left early with an injury. I don't like faulting guys for leaving due to injury either. I don't. But it's the biggest game of your life. 8 years ago, you laid on the field, tears in your eyes, after losing to Trinidad and not even getting to the 2018 World Cup. Everything since then, if you were Christian Pulisic, led up to last night. And fine, if you got hurt, I don't know the severity of Pulisic's injury. Maybe we'll find that out in the coming days. But to not show up before the injury, the way he didn't show up before the injury, is wildly disappointing. Maybe it's Flo Balogun. Maybe it's Malik Tillman. But the U.S. men's national team needs to figure out who that guy is. Because I think we can safely say now that if there's a superstar who's going to carry this team over the hump of the round of 16, which they haven't been able to get past in 24 years, it's not Pulisic. A really strong number 2 to a number 1.
1.
But not that
The question
is... Go ahead. Sorry, Laura.
1.
The question is always, well, was this a success? Look, I think that this team did win hearts and minds. I think that this team did bring people into the tent, and they should be incredibly proud for that. But also there's a part of me that says the time for moral victories is over, and so we've left something on the table here. And that, to me, is disappointing.
Alexi Lalas on the Fox postgame panel as well. That's the thing. The time for moral victories, as Lalas put it there, has come and gone. I mean, we're talking about 3 decades now where the U.S. men's national team has one ride where they've gotten to the quarterfinals. They've also got one where they didn't even make it into the World Cup. And then it's just repetitious year after year, not year after year, time after time after time, round of 16 and out. And sure, you can chalk up a knockout round win because the tournament was expanded this time around in the round of 32. And that's all well and good. But once again, it wasn't against one of the big boys. And this team still has not gotten to the point where they can hang with the big boys. And until that happens, you're going to have what's going to happen here in the United States over the next few days and the last couple weeks of this tournament. And I hate to do this because I'm not telling you to react this way. I can just see it coming. I can see it happening because I see it happening in my own mind. What we're going to see is a disengagement from the rest of the World Cup. Look, soccer fans, I'm not saying you're going to disengage. You're soccer fans. And sure, some of us will still pay attention when we get France-Spain in the next round, in the quarterfinals, or in the semifinals. We've got the possibility of England and Argentina as well. I mean, there are great teams out there, that I'm sure will play entertaining matches against each other. But with the U.S. out, the average U.S. sports fan is now going to go back to their regularly scheduled programming. They're going to go back to reading their college football preview magazines. They're going to go back to preparing for their fantasy drafts. They're going to go back to trying to figure out where LeBron is going to be. They're going to go back to wondering if their team can stay in the wild card race. They're going to go back to all of these things. The home run derby next week. The All-Star game. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. And that's the biggest problem with this. If the U.S. men's national team had won just one more match, just one more, it would have captured this country's attention for just another 5 days, maybe, but it would have kept the average American sports fan from going, oh, yeah, World Cup, sorry, I'm done. And that's the biggest problem, is that with this loss, soccer, the biggest problem for soccer fans is that once again, soccer will fall way off to the side of the radar screen, if not completely off. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will power rank the best coaching staffs in the NFL. And this is wild. Speaking of those coaching staffs, we'll relate a story that Adam Schefter has tweeted out this morning about coaching staffs, and maybe one of those staffs that will be in our top 5 when we power rank them at the top of the hour. As for the NBA offseason, the news keeps coming, and in particular, it relates to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Breaking news from Cleveland. Does it involve LeBron? I'll tell you next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Coming up in just a second, it may have been the final match with the U.S. men's national team for one person who I think, anyway, despite last night's failure, should be back. I'll tell you who that is in just a minute here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. John Morosi, who, of course, works for MLB Network, but also contributes to Sirius XM FC. We'll talk to him about both the World Cup, and we're past the halfway point in the Major League Baseball season with the All-Star game just about a week away. So, exactly a week away, actually. So we'll talk to John about a couple different MLB storylines, including the trade deadline also being less than a month away, and what he thinks of some of those All-Star snubs. Breaking news out of Cleveland, though. This segment sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting your business vehicles 24/7. See if you can save at progressivecommercial.com. It doesn't involve LeBron. Yet. We'll talk to Nick Wilson of 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, and get his reaction to this and how it affects the LeBron chase, though. Donovan Mitchell has agreed to a 4-year, $273 million max contract extension that includes a player option for the 2030-31 season and a full trade kicker. This from Shams Charania at ESPN about 21 minutes ago. 29 years old, Mitchell could have waited until next summer for an additional fifth season worth an extra $80 million on the deal. Instead, he's committed on a long-term extension now on the first day he was eligible to do so. How's this affect the LeBron chase, if at all? Again, Nick Wilson will join us at 11 from Cleveland, Jack Fritz from Philly, Daryl Johnson, the guru, from San Francisco, and Alejandro Solana from Miami. Yes, we will play the LeBronchular. Will you accept this, Rose? We'll talk to someone in each of those four cities at 11 Eastern about the LeBron chase. We'll power rank the 5 best coaching staffs in the NFL, which may or may not include a wild Sean Payton story coming up at the top of the hour in about 35 minutes, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. But I do think Mauricio Pochettino should be back as the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. And I'll tell you why. I don't put it on him what happened last night. I don't. When your key players, a good number of them anyway, perform that poorly or look that disengaged in what is the biggest game of their lives up to that point, that's on them. And clearly, Pochettino did something at the half because they came out in the second half with more aggression, went on the attack, and had Belgium on their heels for a while in the second half. They never ended up capitalizing on it. But Pochettino must have done his best Rudy speech at halftime. And credit to him for making substitutions, at least, that should have helped and appeared to help. Gio Reyna, Sebastian Berhalter both looked like two of the better players on the field for the U.S. men's national team in the second half. And in addition to last night specifically, just in general, and this is going to get lost in the sauce, which, look, it should somewhat, because like Alexi Lawless said, and we played it for you right off the top of the show, I don't want this to be about moral victories, about how, oh, yay, soccer for 3 weeks before they collapsed and fell on their faces last night. But there is a silver lining in that the U.S. found a style that I think once they get capable defenders on the back line, will allow them to compete with the big boys. Again, didn't work last night. because guys, for whatever reason, look like they just dropped in on the match and expected things to work out for them. I have a theory about that as well a little later in the show, but they have a style now that can allow them to compete with the heavyweights if they ever get back to that point. And we'll have to wait 4 years to see that happen. But Pochettino encouraging that style, the aggressive, attacking nature with the ball on offense, is a good thing. The worst thing the U.S. Men's Soccer Federation could do right now would be to say, well, ultimately we lost because Pochettino didn't have us prepared defensively. I don't think it was about him not having them prepared defensively. It was about they just didn't have the talent on defense. And it showed. And this was not about style. If the U.S. plays the same style last night that they had in their first 4 World Cup matches, we're not talking about a brutal, ugly, embarrassing 4-1 flop against Belgium. At the very least, it would have been a much more competitive game. And who knows, maybe the Americans even win. Maybe that sounds all a little too pie in the sky right now. But the style that Pochettino implemented, I think, is the right way forward. Now you just have to get the right players, especially on the back end, to fit that style. Some of these guys are going to age out, Tim Ream amongst them. I think he'll be 41 when the next World Cup comes around. He's not going to be a part of this squad. I imagine there may be some changes in net. So it's not the style for me. The style was part of what endeared American sports fans to the U.S. men's national team in those first 4 matches. And I think that is the way forward. So despite last night's collapse, I'm not putting it on Pochettino. In fact, I think he should be back. We'll talk to Martino Puccio, contributor for The Athletic, host of That Milan pod. He'll join us in 1 hour to give us his perspective of everything that broke down for the U.S. men's national team last night. But coming up next, we ask someone who's been covering the World Cup what caused that U.S. failure in his eyes. And we'll ask him about some MLB All-Star snubs, too, that we discussed yesterday. Yes, a double shot of summertime sports with John Morosi of MLB Network and SiriusXM FC. That's next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Yeah, we got to chill and find a little bit more of a mellow vibe this morning after last night. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos here on You Better You Bet. It is Westwood One Sports. Top of the hour. We'll continue our daily series of power rankings building up to the start of NFL training camps in a few weeks. Today, we power rank coaching staffs. And in doing so, we'll relay a story from Adam Schefter and Seth Wickersham that came out this morning about one guy who may be on that list, one coaching staff that may be in the top 5 of those power rankings. Also, coming up in about 45 minutes, the Jaylen Brown trade was a salary dump all along, but not even a salary dump for this year. We'll get into it here on Westwood One Sports. You can pick them. Yeah, the U.S. might be out, but you can still pick the winners throughout the world's game inside your BetMGM app. Predict what will happen each day for a chance to win bonus bets. Answer questions each day of the tournament to make predictions on what will happen. If you get the most picks right that day, you'll win a share of bonus bets inside the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. We will talk all-star snubs, the hottest teams, the teams looking to ride a wave and surge towards the trade deadline in just a moment. But we have to continue with the story of the day with the man who's been covering it for SiriusXM FC. The great John Morosi joins us here on Westwood One Sports. Good morning, John. How are you?
Chris, good morning. I'm doing okay. I really thought that when that game began last night that you and I would be talking about the U.S. on to the quarterfinal, continuing to make history. Alas, my friend, that was not the story last night, nor is it the story this morning.
Yeah, it's a great amount of disappointment for not just soccer fans who wanted to see the U.S. men's national team take that next step, but also, I think, just American sports fans in general who were all riding the crest of patriotism and wanting to see this team move on to the quarterfinals for the first time in 24 years. Let's start with last night specifically, and then we can kind of zoom out and broaden it to this team in general. Last night, it was astonishing to me to see the U.S. do exactly the opposite of what they had done through the first 4 matches of this tournament, where they had been aggressive from the outset, had taken the game to their opponents, and looked like they were fully engaged. It almost looked like they just parachuted in on this to me, John, and expected things to just happen. There was standing around, there was ball watching. It was very uncharacteristic from what we had seen to this point in the World Cup. In your opinion, what do you think may have led to that?
It's a great question, Chris, and I agree with you fully on your assessment. The version of Team USA that we saw last night bore zero resemblance to what we have seen from this team throughout the World Cup. The excitement that we saw was totally absent. I really don't believe that the Balogun situation, is he in, is he out? Who's involved in getting the red card suspended, etc. I don't think that decided the game last night. Did it shift the focus a little bit and create more noise than perhaps they needed? That may well be true. Whatever the reason was, I concur that this team was not focused last night. They did not play like a focused soccer team. They seemed at times to be unsure, tentative. It could have also been just as simple as this, that for a while they were maybe the analogy I'll make is that when you're watching a college basketball game in March and the 12 seed is all of a sudden about to eclipse the higher seed and they're closing the gap, and then all of a sudden they take the lead with 6 minutes left. They look up at the scoreboard and say, okay, well, now we got to win this game. And then it changes everything. The atmosphere changes, the tone changes. And this felt like a team that did exactly that, looked up at the scoreboard and said, oh, man, we got to deliver now. And they just didn't. And there was the Tillman moment with the free kick goal, which was another beautiful strike from him. And by the way, he's still young enough that he's going to be a huge part of this team for a long time. But this was the game. This was the game, the pivot point to where if you win last night and if you lose to Spain on Friday, you can still stamp this as a competitive step forward, because for so long, the round of 16 has been that moment where it all fell apart. And it was the same story. And it wasn't just that they lost Chris, it was how they lost. Mexico lost on Sunday to England, and yet still emerged from that game as a team that was lauded and celebrated in Mexico and around the world for the way in which they performed, even in defeat. That was not the case for the Americans last night. They struggled with the pace that Belgium put out there in their starting 11, and then Belgium had even more talent to bring in late, like Lukaku and Doku. So this was a team in Belgium that was just deeper than the U.S., a bit more mentally ready, and I don't think that's Pochettino's fault. There's a lot of experience on that Belgium side. It was as if they knew how the match was going to play out before it happened, whereas the U.S. just mentally was not up to it in the biggest game of a lot of their lives.
I have a hard time faulting a guy for leaving due to injury, even in the biggest game of his life. So I'm not going to hold that against Christian Pulisic because we don't know the severity of the injury yet, and maybe a few days yet before we find out exactly how injured he was. But I do think, and Carly Lloyd was pretty pointed in her criticisms on Fox on the post-game panel, that what we saw from Pulisic in this World Cup, maybe the calf injury affected him, maybe it was something else, but what we saw from Pulisic, I think, has left American sports fans wondering, is this the guy? Maybe he's very good. And he is. I said it multiple times over the last few days, John. When he has the ball on his foot, it's almost like it's tethered to his toe at times, the way he controls it. But to lead the game between both squads in turnovers last night, to once again come up short in a big moment like Pulisic did last night, is there a question in your mind about whether he's the quote-unquote guy going forward?
Oh, yeah. There is. And part of it feeds into something that we touched on a little bit earlier in the conversation, which is the age of these players. When the U.S. missed the World Cup in the qualifying cycle leading up to 18, Pulisic was a teenager. He was the young up-and-comer. Yeah, you could have asked for more from him at that time. And he was on the field for the defeat that knocked the U.S. out of qualifying, but he was still a teenager. That was not yet his team. It was his team in 22, and yet there was still this belief that, okay, everything is still pointing towards 26. 26 is when Pulisic, Adams, McKennie, when they're all going to be in their prime, and you put Richards in that conversation too, Anthony Robinson as well. This is when everything was pointing towards the big year, when you're in your mid to late 20s, and that's your prime. This was it. Whether it's fitness, whether it's form, it can't always be something. And with Pulisic, it has seemed too often that there have been explanations or excuses and reasons why it hasn't all come together. This was the year. This was the World Cup on home soil. You play every game on home soil. You played every meaningful game on the West Coast. There were no excuses about long travel, etc. It was all pointing to this World Cup. And for whatever the reasons were, maybe injury was part of it, he just didn't deliver enough. And Balogun was their most dangerous offensive player throughout the course of this World Cup. I would say Tillman in his role was probably a close second. McKennie was probably third. Pulisic was, when healthy, he was good. But that wasn't enough, and certainly he wasn't good last night. And again, the injury is part of that conversation. More than likely, that will help explain it. But it can't always be something, Chris. And I think that the feeling for American soccer fans right now is it's for this generation collectively, and Pulisic is a huge part of this. It is unfulfilling. Unfulfilling. This was supposed to be the World Cup. Last night was supposed to be the night. And I think it left a lot of American soccer people, a lot of casual American fans who tuned into this team in this World Cup, just felt everyone a little bit unfulfilled after that game last night.
One more about this from more of a zoomed out 50,000-foot view, John, and then we'll pivot to MLB as they approach the All-Star break. John Morosi of MLB Network, contributing to Sirius XMFC's coverage of the World Cup as well, is with us here on Westwood One Sports. Is Pochettino the guy going forward? Because my contention is, yes, as everybody has said, they looked unprepared for the moment last night, but I don't put that on Pochettino. I put that more on the individual players. And I think the style that he ingrained in this team is just as important as the groundswell of support that they earned during this World Cup before last night's match. I think that style is the kind of style, if they reform their back line, that actually can compete with the big boys down the line.
Well, you're right. And I'll answer the first part first. Number one, if I was U.S. Soccer, I would do whatever I could to retain Pochettino. I believe he is the best manager for this team, one of the best managers in the world. He got the best version out of this team, certainly through the group stage, into the game against Bosnia. It got them through that game, even while down to 10 men. That's a good job of managing your personnel. And the way that the U.S. played, especially you think Paraguay, the first half against Australia, was just so entertaining. And so he gets football, he gets America, even as someone who wasn't born here. And so he understands the dynamics at play. I believe he's the best person to get the most out of this group. If it's not him, it should be someone else. Maybe it's Roberto Martinez, who just finished his tenure with Portugal. Maybe another international manager with some stature. Of course, Italy is right now working through their process, whether they hire Conte or Mancini. There will be a good manager from that part of the world that's still looking for a job. So I would look to Europe if it's not Pochettino, because you want to go with someone who understands how to get past the Belgiums or the Netherlands or teams in this round that have consistently vexed and flummoxed the U.S. Because let's remember now, you got to qualify. You've got to build this next cycle for 2030. You've got potentially a Copa America coming up in a couple years. This is not just a 4 years down the road job. This is a how do I get this group of players mentally and physically dialed in to win this game next time around. And last night showed just how big that gap is going to be. So I think, and you touch on a really important point about this team, is the back line is going to have to be repaired. I would imagine Chris Richards still part of this team 4 years from now, in maybe one of those veteran roles like what Tim Ream had on this team. Obviously, Ream will be too old for the next World Cup. This is the part of the club. I think we've got enough attacking talent in our player pool. I would want to see, as you look to leagues all around the world, who are the American passport holders who are good center backs and potentially good wing backs. I think those are the players that we'll be talking about a lot as U.S. soccer followers here in the years to come.
All right, let's pivot to the All-Star break, which is right around the corner. John Morosi of MLB Network with us here on Westwood One Sports. We get Jacob Mizorowski tonight, a chance to bounce back on the road against the Cardinals. We had Cam Schlittler last night in a big bounce-back performance. We've also got Zach Wheeler trying to bounce back, even though he had 10 strikeouts in his last outing, only went 4 2/3 against the Pirates. He's on the road at Cincy. We've got all of these high-level starters getting their last go-around before the All-Star break. I guess I'll start with Wheeler. Definitely an all-star snub, right? Like a guy that should have been on the all-star roster.
I agree. And with Wheeler, it might be a case of a little bit delayed in terms of when his season started. Of course, he did not join the Phillies rotation until the year was already underway. So more than likely just a case of a lack of the bulk that you usually see from Wheeler. But this was a difficult National League to make some decisions. I can't believe Justin Robleski did not make this All-Star team yet. Now, he may still be added at the final buzzer. And, of course, the man who's the manager, Dave Roberts, knows him and knows his quality. And so maybe that will be the path that eventually he gets onto the All-Star team. He pitches tonight, too. The thing about Mizorowski that's interesting to me, Chris, is if he pitches tonight and then again on Sunday, he probably wouldn't pitch in the All-Star game. There's a lot of those different dynamics that are at work and about how you're going to pace out the rest days for a lot of these pitchers. So I'll be really curious to see. I think Mizorowski still is the far and away favorite to be the Cy Young winner right now in the National League, even with 1 or 2 starts that might have not gone his way. But man, he's setting new records every day, it seems like, with velocity and just the way that he goes about his work. So I think Mizorowski is one of those guys that we're hoping that we get a chance to see at the All-Star game, as long as his rest is such that he'll be able to go. But I think the pitching side in general, Davis Martin is one more name on the American League side that you would say is probably a snub. There are some really high-quality pitchers that were left off this year, and I think we have an abundance of great pitching around the league, and a lot of that's going to be on display Tuesday in Philadelphia.
We got about a minute and a half here, John, but one of the guys who starts tonight, one of those aces who has not looked like himself lately, but will be going to the All-Star game. Paul Skeens goes for the Pirates against a Braves team that is obviously battling for every inch that they have between them and the Phillies right now in the NL East. Just in your observations, what have you noticed from Skeens that doesn't quite look right?
It's a great question, and it's a tough one. My colleague Mark DeRosa did a really good job breaking this down on MLB Central recently about how the mechanics lead to the velocity drop and the stuff not being quite as crisp. There's one little part of his delivery where he's not quite as open at the right time to deliver the baseball as he typically would be in terms of just making sure that he's there with foot down, where the arm is, delivering the ball, all in sync. And he just seems to be, by the slightest margins, out of sequence. And that's all it takes in this game to have a drop in velocity. Now, what is the reason for it? Is it a fatigue thing? Is it an injury thing? I think that's probably something only Paul Skeens can answer. But we're all seeing the results, which is that the velocity has been diminished and the overall effectiveness has been diminished. So it's an important all-star break for him and for the Pirates, finding a way to get him healthy and get him back out there and whatever rest he needs, because now all of a sudden the Pirates have a decent chance to make a run for a wild card spot. But Chris, I don't see that happening unless Paul Skeens is healthy and really ready to go. So that to me is a huge question that you're asking, and it's an important one for the Pirates and indeed the entire National League as we look ahead to the second half.
John, thanks so much for the time this morning, both on the World Cup. Your work on Sirius XMFC has been great, and obviously love to talk baseball with you. We'll check you out on MLB Network as we're now just a week from the All-Star game. Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks for the great work that you do, and all the best here for the All-Star break ahead. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. John Morosi of MLB Network and Sirius XMFC. Yeah, as for Pochettino, I agree with him. It's the style and the way he had those guys ready to go was perfect leading up to last night. And then last night, I put it on those guys not being ready. As for the All-Star break, yeah, the snubs, I hate to say there's not enough spots on the roster. We don't need 50 guys on each roster, but we got to do a better job of making sure we got the right guys on the roster. Coming up, a wild story from Adam Schefter and Seth Wickersham about one NFL head coach. And does that coach's staff end up in our power rankings of the top 5 NFL coaching staffs going into this season? That's next, right here on Westwood One Sports.
ready? Are you ready? It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
We'll continue to break down how it all went so wrong for the U.S. men's national team last night after it had all gone oh so right through their first four matches. When we talked to Martino Puccio, contributor to the Athletic soccer coverage, also host of That Milan Pod. He joins us in 35 minutes here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet in 20 minutes. Wait, Jaylen Brown trade was just a salary dump? Ugh. And not just a salary dump for this season, but a salary dump for 2 years from now? Huh? You have to hear some of what Brad Stevens had to say yesterday during a very uncomfortable press conference with the Boston media. 1 hour from now, the LeBronchular. Someone will accept this rose. Who will it be? We'll talk to Alejandro Solana from Miami, Daryl, the Guru Johnson from San Francisco, Jack Fritz from Philadelphia, Nick Wilson from Cleveland, and ask each of them how well positioned they think their NBA franchise is to sign LeBron James this summer, particularly in Cleveland with the news of the Donovan Mitchell max extension that came out this morning. So a lot to get to today, but each day we have been power ranking different components. We were just doing position groups for a while, and then we got to the point where I was like, I don't know, there's more than just the players on the field. So today we will power rank the best coaching staffs around the NFL as we continue to build up towards training camps opening in just a little more than 2 weeks around the NFL. Maybe this team will be one of the top 5 coaching staffs, but this story is wild. And I have to relay this story before we get into the actual power rankings proper. Seth Wickersham of ESPN spent the postseason this past year embedded with the Denver Broncos, covering their playoff run. And apparently, at some point along the way, someone told him about a plan Sean Payton had in place to basically give Bill Belichick his job for as long as he may have needed it to gain the all-time wins record and pass Don Shula. This directly from Wickersham's piece. Peyton and Belichick go back decades, forged by mutual respect and mutual trauma from working under Bill Parcells. When Belichick and the Patriots divorced in 2024, as the story goes, Peyton considered presenting Broncos owner Greg Penner a proposal for the ages. Hire Belichick as head coach until he reached 15 wins, enough to break Don Shula's career record of 347. Peyton would temporarily step down to assistant head coach and run the offense, then move back into place as head coach after Belichick had become the all-time leader. In the end, it was too complicated and maybe too fanciful, writes Seth. Now, I am not questioning Seth Wickersham's reporting. He does these kind of things where he does a deep dive into teams and people around the NFL and does a very good job of reporting these stories. But I will question this story, not Seth's publishing of the story, but just how it was relayed to Seth. I don't have any soft spot anywhere in my body, let alone in the middle of my heart, for Sean Payton. I think it's funny that the quote-unquote mutual trauma that Belichick and Peyton may have suffered in working for Bill Parcells years ago has essentially turned Peyton into a modern-day clone of Parcells. As a head coach, is he successful? Yes, more often than not. As a head coach, does he come off as a giant jerk? More often than not? Yes, also true. So this just strikes me as Sean Payton telling this story to someone along the line, and then it bounced its way to Seth Wickersham, maybe bounced its way to multiple people. And again, not going to not praise the reporting by Seth Wickersham here, but you get the story from multiple people. Okay, we've checked our sources. All is well. Maybe even he went back to the source and Payton and checked with him. And of course, Sean Payton, being the blowhard that he is, went, well, yeah, of course I had that idea, Seth. Look at me, I'm a genius. Why wouldn't I have that idea? And so it gets printed. That's what it sounds like to me. Sean Payton pumping his own tires and pulling several muscles trying to pat himself on the back for what a good guy he is. You know, I was going to let Belichick take my job so he could catch Shula's record. I was going to do that, sure. For Bill, anything. Please. Sean Payton stepped down as head coach. Who the hell are we kidding? The guy's an egomaniacal control freak. We think he was going to step aside and let Belichick be a figurehead? Come on. Anyway, had to relay that story. Now, given what I've said about Sean Payton, do you expect him to be amongst my top 5 coaching staffs in the NFL? I don't know, but let's power rank some things, because why the hell not with training camps just a little more than 2 weeks away. The top 5 coaching staffs in the NFL, according to me. Number 5. I'm going to get this out of the way so I don't have to hear it from Kenny and Bill, but Ben Johnson got a huge leap out of Caleb Williams last year. And I think the advantage to having Press Taylor elevated to offensive coordinator should be consistency on that side of the ball for the Bears. Dennis Allen, a classic example of, man, that guy's a really good coordinator. Sucks as a head coach, but a really good coordinator. So I think they've got the makings of a very strong staff in Chicago, one that should help the Bears continue to grow. I know a lot of people, for some reason, have pegged them as a team maybe taking half a step back this year because they won so many of those tight ball games with so many of those miracle moments last year. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would peg them for half a step back. So, and Ben Johnson is a massive part of that. So I have the Bears at number 5. Number 4, look, man, this guy still manages an offense as well as anybody. Does he have one of the best running backs in the league at his disposal? Yeah, when the guy's healthy. But what has he really had in the receiving core over the last couple of years? Yes, one of the all-time great tight ends. But Kyle Shanahan still knows how to manage an offense. San Francisco is number 4 for me. And I think, speaking of guys who are, I think, very good coordinators, but just not cut out for head coach, they did a good job of replacing Bob Saleh with Raheem Morris. I think Raheem Morris handling that side of the ball maybe helps, I don't know, rehabilitate that image of him, maybe gets him back into head coaching circles in a few years. Maybe a lot of people understand it for what it should be, which is, again, Raheem Morris, very good coordinator, not a great head coach, but they've got a strong staff there in place in San Francisco, especially being led by Kyle Shanahan. I got the Niners number 4. Number 3, I mean, it'd be crazy not to include these guys, regardless of what you thought happened to them last year, regardless of what you think may or may not happen to them this year as they get just another year older at their 2 most important positions on offense and their most important position on defense. But the Chiefs are number 3. I think there's a massive question about just how flexible Andy Reid is to the abilities and skills of an aging quarterback coming off a major injury. Obviously, going out and getting Kenneth Walker III while not reinforcing the receiving core tells you that there will be some flexibility there, and we're going to lean into the run game, and we're not going to ask Patrick to do maybe as much as he has in the past, especially coming off a major injury. I think that could all work if Andy Reid is really flexible about things. How flexible will Eric Bieniemy be as he moves back into the fold in Kansas City? He comes back in remembering Patrick Mahomes at the peak of his powers. Is Mahomes still going to be there coming off that injury? Plus, I mean, you can count on Spags on defense to always make that defense look better than the talent available to him. So number 3 for me, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, I don't know if we can question this guy after what he put together last year. And yes, he's got a new OC coming in, but it's an OC that worked with his quarterback a few years ago in a different spot. Mike McDonald's got a ring, kids. So the Seahawks are number 2 for me. And yes, new offensive coordinator, but Fleury worked with Darnold in San Francisco in 2023. So there is some consistency there. Plus, again, he coached some of the best talent in the league, coaching backs and tight ends in San Francisco as well. So I think it should be a relatively seamless transition with a new OC in Seattle. Mike McDonald's got a handle on everything, and yeah, they've got a ring, like I said. So Seattle's number 2 for me, which leaves an obvious option for number 1. We all know where this is going. The Rams. Sean McVay's still a great play caller. Chris Shula sticks around to run that defense that just is littered with superhuman personnel now that Myles Garrett is in the fold. And there is an advantage, and why I have the Rams at 1 over Seattle at number 2, there is an advantage to your new OC being an in-house promotion, Nate Scheelhaus. That's not much of an adjustment, I wouldn't think, for Scheelhaus, as opposed to, like I said, bringing in Fleury in Seattle, who will have to make some adjustments, even if he has worked with Darnold before. So I have Sean McVay and the Rams coaching staff at number 1. And that is your definitive power ranking of the top 5 coaching staffs in the NFL. Rams 1, Seahawks 2, Chiefs 3, Niners 4, Bears 5. Bill, I always like to get your thoughts on this and whether I nailed it, maybe missed somebody by a spot, somebody we could have considered. I'll be honest, I did have Sean Payton, who I just roasted 10 minutes ago, as an honorable mention, the Broncos staff. Lions staff, I think, is still worth talking about, as much attrition as they've had over the last couple of years, but neither one of those two cracked my top 5. So your feedback on the top 5 coaching staffs around the league.
I think overall, Chris, pretty good list. I agree. You can't put the Lions in there when Dan Campbell had to take over play calling in the middle of the season last year. You know, you're not doing head coaches, you're doing coaching staff. So when I look at that, there's 2 things that I'm going to say. One, Kansas City Chiefs, if you're talking about career accomplishments, that's number 1 with Reed and Spags. But the way that team was coached last year, they were flat. There were some questionable things going on. I would not put the Chiefs in the top 5. Maybe that's a hot take right now because Andy Reid's like a top 3 coach, at least top 5 coach all time. But I'm just talking about where the Chiefs are right now. Is it one of those things where maybe, the game is starting to pass them by, so to speak, like late stage Belichick in New England? So I question Kansas City a little bit. Denver's tough to lead off with Sean Payton and Vance Joseph. That is a pretty formidable offensive and defensive duo. The other one you left off that I think deserves a lot of consideration should be the Minnesota Vikings. When you've got KOC running the offense, with what he managed to do with just a giant dumpster for a quarterback situation last year, they still had a winning record. And of course, Brian Flores running that defense. So those would be the ones I would look at. I would, Denver and Minnesota, and then I would take out, Kansas City, but it is tough to narrow that down to 5. To me, those are the top 6.
Yeah, Minnesota's a good call as well. Definitely worth at least an honorable mention. And if I did top 5 in ties, maybe I'd have them there next to the Bears at number 5. But we don't do ties in our power rankings. That's for soccer. And as we've all decided already, soccer is dead to us now. So it's hard.
Baby.
KOC and Flores is a hell of a duo. I want to see what KOC does with Kyler this year. And that, I think, if they are competing for the division crown, or at the very least a wild card, and he completely turns Kyler Murray's career around in one season, then yeah, the Viking staff is obviously top 5 because he has shown, especially like you said, given the mess that he dealt with last year, he can make the most of it. They're your power rankings of the best coaching staffs around the league in the NFL as we handle different power rankings around the league leading up to training camps, now just a little more than 2 weeks away. Martino Puccio, contributor for The Athletic. He's also the host of That Milan Pod, is going to join us in 20 minutes to talk about the breakdowns for the U.S. men's national team last night and where it goes from here. Top of the hour, pardon me. We will go from Cleveland to Philly to San Francisco to Miami and talk to someone in each city about what they think their NBA franchise's chances are to sign LeBron James. Yes, at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, we'll play the LeBron Chiller. But coming up next, the explanation for the trade itself may have been almost as infuriating for Boston basketball fans as the actual trade. What did Celtics brass have to say for themselves yesterday? We'll let you hear a little bit of it next, right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. This segment sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting your business vehicles 24/7. See if you can save at progressivecommercial.com. In just a second, I want to let you hear something that was said yesterday in Boston that I still can't really totally wrap my head around. And I'm not even a Celtics fan. In 15 minutes, Martino Puccio, contributor for The Athletic to their soccer coverage, also the host of That Milan Pod. How massively disappointing is the U.S. men's national team loss last night to Belgium in the World Cup? Can Pulisic be the guy, or has that ship sailed? Should Pochettino be retained? All those things with Martino coming up, like I said, in about 15 minutes here on Westwood One Sports. So during an extensive press conference yesterday, Brad Stevens and Celtics owner Bill Chisholm fielded questions about the Jaylen Brown deal to the Sixers in exchange for Paul George. And the word optionality. I mean, if we were playing a drinking game with the word optionality during that Celtics press conference yesterday, we'd all still be hammered. Was mentioned over and over and over and over again. And Brad Stevens kept talking about how difficult it is in this system to keep two stars together when they're eating up so much of your cap. 70% of your cap is going to two max deal players. It's just so hard to do. And then Brad Stevens was asked about still having two players, thanks to Paul George's contract, eating up 70% of the cap. Listen to this.
And I know there are salary matching rules, but you talk about how you can't have 70% of the salary cap tied up into these two players.
Still do.
You still do.
That's right.
So
good follow-up.
What's next
Yeah.
after this?
I think the biggest thing is that it's that plus the picks, plus the optionality moving forward. Paul's contract is shorter.
Drink. Optionality, drink. You know somebody at a podium is screwed when they acknowledge the quality of the follow-up question. Oh, yeah, you got me on that one. Good follow-up. All this was, in the end, the Jaylen Brown trade by the Celtics, all it was a salary dump that doesn't even take place for at least a year, probably more likely two. This isn't the Boston Celtics. What are we doing? Seriously. And again, I'm not even a Celtics fan. Closest I've ever been to being a Celtics fan was when I was in high school and listened to Jump Around by House of Pain incessantly and briefly thought for just a moment about buying a Celtics jersey. A green Larry Bird, obviously, but that's the closest I've ever been to being a Celtics fan. But if I were a Celtics fan right now, I'd be storming the gates. What are we doing? We're the Boston freaking Celtics. And we're worried about retaining big-time salaries 2 years from now? 2 years from now. This is the most massively mismanaged deal. And I know there have been a lot of really bad trades in the history of the NBA. So maybe I shouldn't say it's the most massively mismanaged deal in NBA history. But it's easily the most mismanaged deal in Boston Celtics history. The Boston Celtics, just a couple years removed from a title run, decided to say, you know what, guys? We really need optionality. Drink. Are you kidding me? Look, there is a hardcore reality to the second apron in the NBA that can make it damn near impossible to manage a roster if you cross that second apron more than one time. Hell, even one time it becomes very punitive. And I understand you want to avoid that possibility. But you don't shuttle out one of the top 10 players in the league in order to avoid that possibility in exchange for a 36-year-old on one of the worst contracts in league history. You don't do that. You ride it out with Jaylen Brown. You run, if at worst, you just run it back. You've got a healthy Tatum going into next year, and you've got Jaylen Brown back. Oh, by the way, the guy that just helped carry you through Tatum's absence. But instead, you trade that guy for another guy who you repeatedly said during yesterday's press conferences, well, we like Paul. He's very good. It's a resounding vote of confidence. And then remind all of us that the reason you did this is because, yes, it was salary in and salary out, but Paul's contract is over sooner. Yay! Optionality. Drink. This is the most ass-backwards thing the Boston Celtics have ever done. And I shouldn't feel this level of rage and fervor. Again, I'm not a Celtics fan. I just feel for the fans of a team who year in, year out, have decided they are going to contend for a championship and just took a step back. An obvious step back. A step back that I think even Brad Stevens wanted to acknowledge yesterday. Somebody asked him at one point, does this make the Celtics better this year than last year? And he said, well, we'll see. Optionality. Drink. They decided to tear this down so they can get salary relief in 2 years. It boggles the mind. And you know what? Esteemed executive producer Bill Zimmerman makes a great point in the chat. 18 championships. Let's all weep for the Celtics fans. It's a hell of a point, Bill. I'm not weeping for Celtics fans necessarily. I just know what it's like to be a fan of a team that consistently tells you year after year after year that the goal is a championship. And then all of a sudden, you realize that's not the goal at all. The goal is, well, let's get to the playoffs. I'm a Steelers fan. Goal hasn't been to win a championship legitimately here for at least half a decade. But they tell us that every year. They tell us that every single stinking year, even though we know, hey, let's just get to the wild card game and see what happens, guys. That's what the Celtics just became. The Celtics just became a team that should have contended for a title every single year as long as they had Tatum and Brown together, and instead decided to give it away so they can have salary cap relief when Paul George's contract expires in 2 years. And again, don't forget, optionality. Drink. That's 6 times. We're hammered. We probably need to be after last night and the way the U.S. men's national team lost to Belgium, fall flat on their faces in the biggest opportunity for most of these guys' lives. Coming up, what's next now for the U.S. men's national team if they want to finally get over the round of 16 hump? We'll ask Martino Puccio, contributor for The Athletic, host of That Milan Pod. That's next right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
You know, there will be time to find silver linings, I suppose, in what played out over the last 3 weeks. Just doesn't feel like this morning is one of those times. I've read plenty of quality columns this morning from folks who were covering the World Cup saying, yeah, it was ugly the way it ended, but, it was a fun ride. I'm not here for sunshine and daisies and rainbows and unicorns this morning. I'm here to have a cold, hard, stark look at what went down last night and what it means for the future of the U.S. men's national team here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. Live across North America on Sirius XM Channel 375, always inside your Odyssey app as well as your Westwood One Sports app. Time to pick them. You can still do it for the world's game inside your BetMGM app. Predict what will happen each day for a chance to win bonus bets. You're going to answer questions each day of the tournament to make predictions on how things will play out. And if you get the most picks right that day, you'll win a share of bonus bets all inside your BetMGM app. Download it today, and please gamble responsibly. I trust this guy to give us a bucket of cold water in the face about what exactly went down last night for the U.S. men's national team as they fell all over themselves against Belgium. Contributor to the Athletic soccer coverage. He also hosts That Milan Pod. Martino Puccio with us here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Good morning, Martino. How are you?
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me. And not really great. Could use some more cold water on my face right now. That was horrible. Not much left to say. I'm sure we'll get into it just now.
Yeah, I mean, we could go a lot of different directions in what failed, and we'll work our way through it here slowly. The first thing that jumped out to me, Martino, is that this was a team that through their first 4 matches of the World Cup just aggressively took the game to their opposition, especially in possession of the ball on the offensive end of the pitch. And last night, none of that happened. They were on their heels. They looked like they just parachuted into this thing and expected it to work out for them. A lot of people, I think, are going to put that on Mauricio Pochettino. I have a hard time doing so when you're talking about 11 guys out there playing the biggest game of their lives, and somehow mentally they're not prepared for that.
Exactly. Who needs a manager to prepare them for the biggest game in U.S. men's national team history? That's on you as players. And you're right. It's mental lapses. It's not even just that energy. I think a lot of people were like, oh, they're nervous. They're nervous. I'm not too sure. I like, it's kind of difficult to diagnose that for an entire team. You see just a lot of sloppy play. And I think you were entirely accurate with setting that tone. Didn't exist at any point in that entire match. You see goals getting scored on early, then the miscommunication on players with Ream and Freeze. Serginho Dest, I think him and Tim Ream in that first half were shockingly awful. And I'm not here to single out players because all 11 of them, maybe if you want to say a little bit with Tillman just because he scored that free kick, there was nothing to boast about or ride home about with this one. You could talk about, that intensity. I think Rudy Garcia did a very smart job for Belgium by not putting in any of the older or slower guard of that Belgian national team to try and match that sort of intensity and fire that Team USA plays with. They were a lot more young and youthful, and they were able to match it. Not only match it, exceed what USA were trying to do. Every little fine detail that came down to this one. It wasn't necessarily that they were completely outplayed and Belgium were terrific. If you look at every single goal that was scored in this game by Belgium, one could argue that they were all preventable if you were playing sharp enough. And again, not to come at Tim Ream or Matt Freeze here, but the level of play catches up to you eventually. When you get opponents like this, I know you and I spoke about it. I was feeling good heading in to this match. There's no denying it. But eventually, your quality catches up to you. I just didn't expect it to look like this and in this fashion because it leaves a sour taste in every U.S. men's national team's fans' mouth because you played fantastic for so many games, scoring 11 goals, winning a knockout stage match against Bosnia down a man, and you felt like you had momentum riding into this, and then you just come out as flat as ever. It really did. I'm not comparing them to the Denver Broncos back in 2013-14, but it just felt like you were anticipating a much better performance, and they were awful from minute one, and you didn't see anything until the final whistle. So, it just, there's going to be a long, hard 4 years about this one.
Yeah, and I think there's a ton of we could throw every analogy we want from other sports at this one. I think I've seen plenty of them. There's been the James Franklin analogy. There's been the Pittsburgh Steelers analogy. Hey, just get to the playoffs and then you lose every time. There's plenty of them to throw around. As for concrete analysis of last night, I think in the case of Christian Pulisic, it wasn't just about last night. It was really about this tournament as a whole. He's incredibly gifted. When the ball is on his foot. I've said it before. It's like it's tethered to his toe at times, the control that he has with the ball. But it all went out the window last night. He turned the ball over more than anyone else on the field. And in a moment where you expect the guy who is the face of your team to elevate his game finally and come through, the exact opposite happened. Pulisic melted down. Is there any question any longer that he is not necessarily the guy? He could be very good at times. He could be the number 2 or number 3 on this team as far as looking at a guy that drives what this team is about, especially given the aggressive style they played under Pochettino, and I hope they continue to play going forward. But maybe it's Balogun, maybe it's Tillman, maybe it's Pepe, whoever it may be. It's not Pulisic.
That's the kind of thing, though, is like, who are you developing? Who's coming in that's better? Yep. That's what I'm always saying with this. Whether or not people want to immediately do the Dempsey and Donovan comparisons because of what Christian is expected to do, all I'll say is this. You swap Dempsey or Donovan in this team yesterday, they're also doing nothing. So I think we have to put that into a little bit of a perspective. I think it's Christian's relationship with the U.S. men's national team that sees him get more criticism than some of these other players, where he's skipping out on certain things because he wants to be healthy for this. And obviously, he did not intend to get his calf injured against Paraguay and then come in and listen, he was horrible yesterday. You're giving the ball away 11 times, more than any other player. It seemed like, and I'm not a body language guy, people are just trying to say, like, it seemed like he just didn't care, where he's talking about how he twisted his ankle and knee on that one play where Tielemans stepped in front of him where he was trying to kick the ball, and he couldn't move after that, and he was pretty much done for. I think what people are always expecting with the national team and your best player is for them to step up in this magical moment. Even if Christian Pulisic played well yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, they conceded 4 goals to Belgium. None of that actually matters, and moving forward in that direction, he's never that personality of being that guy. He has never been that, and it's kind of like it's almost not his fault. He's the best player because now he has to take on all this pressure of that. He refuses to be called Captain America. That's something he pushes. He's just not that type of personality. And that actually matters because Clint Dempsey and the way he approached everything was night and day with Pulisic. And that's usually where that main criticism comes from. For me, it's also like, this guy can play in another World Cup. To kind of dismiss him and beat him down is kind of silly. We've also seen Leo Messi, who in my opinion is the greatest player of all time, retire from the Argentinian national team because he was deemed not good enough in 2016 for his own right. He said, I'm stepping back. I'm done. I can't do this pressure, because everything was a comparison to Maradona, and he was falling up short or coming up short and falling flat. And that's also a guy who was player of the 2014 World Cup. Okay. The pressure of the national team can get to you. And what the season that Pulisic had with AC Milan, where he basically didn't score for 6 months, and he's trying to stay healthy, and he's injured the entire year. He comes into the Paraguay match, plays brilliant in that first half, one of the better players for Team USA. Then he goes down injured. And then it just slowly capitulates into this disastrous campaign for himself, where the team's playing a little bit better when he's not on the field. And, what is he also supposed to do against Bosnia? This is just like my other little thing here. They get a red card, and the next 40 minutes of that game, is he supposed to score? What is he supposed to do when they're down? They're trying to hold on for dear life with that 1-0 lead. And he wasn't necessarily bad in that one. It's just going to come down to this final one where people are looking and pointing to their best player and saying, you didn't save us. But my argument is, how is he supposed to save anyone? I don't think you take any player in U.S. men's team history. They're not coming in and saving that team in that one. That's a collective. Those are all 11 guys. Freeze was bad. Richards was bad. Ream was awful. Dest was one of the worst players we've seen. McKennie kind of ghosted entirely. Balogun couldn't even get the ball because everyone else was losing it the entire time. You win and lose as a team. I think it's Christian's personality and his relationship with this fan base is that it makes it sour. Because if he was deemed to be putting in all this effort and cared more, then people would have been able to accept it. And I guess the expectation was that this team should have made it to the quarterfinal. This was more of a toss-up than some people wanted to admit. Team USA could have played great in those first four games, and they did. But sometimes you run into your level. And when you make those small mistakes, the scoreline is going to look a lot worse than probably what the game should have been. Probably would have been around a 2-1 if you didn't have brain freezes like those players had. So it's really unfortunate to see that for Pulisic, because now he has to sit on this for a couple of years. And also, what does this do for Mauricio Pochettino? I'm not trying to change up the topic right now, because
no, that's exactly where I was going to go next anyway. So,
go ahead then.
Well, no, I think because you make a good point. Pulisic's going to wear this one. I think Pochettino's going to wear this one, even though I don't, like I said right off the top, I don't think he should wear this one, because it was the style of play that he implemented as this team approached the World Cup and started to play in this World Cup that I think actually gives them an opportunity, Martino, if they can reform their back line and their defense to compete with the big boys at some point in the future. I would like to see them stay with that style, stay with the Balligans, stay with the Tillmans, even like you said, stay with Pulisic, and move forward in this, I guess, image of the game that feels, for lack of a better way to put it, a whole lot more American. Like, we want offense, we want fireworks, we want teams that are fun to watch. And Pochettino understood that. And now it's just about fortifying the back end, I think. And that is the path forward. Do you think U.S. soccer will look at it the same way, or will Pochettino become a scapegoat?
I mean, if he's a scapegoat, then people should be worried that they're not going to be seeing a quarterfinal anytime soon, let alone like they were upset about what just happened. You were getting rid of what clearly and obviously was the best manager you have hired in quite some time, I think decades. Poch already has the most wins at the World Cup in men's history. Okay? He did that immediately. He won his knockout game. It's not his fault Tim Ream can't do what he's doing. Like, where are the replacements from this U.S. Federation, right? We talk about replacing Christian Pulisic. Fine. You don't think Pulisic's good? Fine, everybody. Show me the replacement. Where is he? Who's the player? Is he of that level? How is Tim Ream? And this is why I don't try and dog on him. He's 38 years old. You're telling me this federation couldn't develop anybody to get him in that position? How many years do we have to go through that? That's what's getting exhausting, is that this entire system is still broken. And people are acting like just because they won 3 games and barely lost to Turkey, that all of a sudden that changes. The system has not changed. We are having kids that are unable to play and develop at a young age because it's too expensive in America to do so. So you want and hope for a new Pulisic, a new Tillman, a new McKennie. Well, that's going to be really difficult to come by if you're making it that hard for the average American to even have an opportunity to do so. There are people all across the country that cannot come in and play. Zlatan Ibrahimovic comes in and he discusses it on when he came to Los Angeles and how expensive it was for him, a multimillionaire, to afford for his kids to play this sport. But yet I'm sure Team USA and this federation have it all figured out because they have nothing but success all the time, right? So we should just bow down and say, yeah, you know what? You guys are right. Because Mauricio Pochettino at this point in time, he didn't get us to a quarterfinal, so clearly he's not good enough, despite the fact that they scored 11 goals. And yet, how many did Berhalter and that team do when they crashed out of Copa America and how awful they looked? He actually gave them an identity, something that this team has not had in God knows how long. And then they want to abandon it because the game ended poorly. Like, seriously, I don't kind of understand it. When you make decisions based off of one game, then it actually means you have no idea what you're doing in the first place. Because not only is that emotional, you're actually not looking at the bigger picture here. To your point was the positivity going into this match was sky high, regardless of whatever the red card situation was. And that's because of Mauricio Pochettino. Them playing well in those friendlies leading up to this tournament, and then how they played in that group stage, and then against Bosnia. That was a different type of attitude. Yes, they laid down like dogs against Belgium. There's no denying that. But to your point, that's not on the manager. And lastly, who's your replacement for him? I'd love to hear this. Right. Who wants to walk into this situation after this guy just got the most wins for the U.S. men's national team, where he has to go to the media and being like, guys, you're being too harsh on yourselves. You're acting like you're the New York Yankees when realistically you're the Pittsburgh Pirates. You just got to stop. And that's the problem with Team USA and their supporters sometimes, is that this level of competitiveness is great to have, but you also have to look at yourself in the mirror and realize you're nowhere near what you thought you were. 2002 was the last time they even made a quarterfinal, and then prior to that was 1930. Can we please stop this? Because now you're going to put a lot more pressure on whoever were to replace Poach in the first place. And you kind of hear his comments, too, after this. What's your future? What's your ideas for this? I don't know. We got to find out. We got to discuss it. That's a bad sign to me. Because now if he's going to get run out of town, why wouldn't he want to go back to Europe? He did all he could here. They played well. He knew that he raised their level. And yet he's still going to get blamed for it. That's a job you probably don't.
Martino Puccio, contributor to the Athletic soccer coverage. You can catch that Milan pod as well. Before I let you run, we've only got like 30 seconds here, so give me a pick for the winner now that we're down to the final 8 or final 10 here.
I have France over Norway in the final.
Ooh, Norway.
England, Mexico was one of the greatest games I've seen in quite some time. But yeah, Norway have a great system. And Erling Haaland as a killer right now, if you even give him a little bit of daylight, he will score that goal. I just think they're playing with house money. England has looked a bit shaky defensively throughout this entire tournament. I don't think it goes well for them. And then France, they're just that good.
Martino, great stuff. Love your passion for the game. Appreciate
Thanks,
your insight. And we'll hope it's not another 4 years before we talk. How about that?
Of course. Oh, yeah. Have me on anytime.
Martino Puccio from The Athletic and that Milan pod. Great stuff. It is You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to have a little fun with it because it's going to be one of the stories of the summer, at least until it gets resolved. Where's LeBron going to go? And we figure, what the heck? Let's get everybody in on the act. Nick Wilson from The Fan in Cleveland. Jack Fritz from WIP in Philly. Daryl the Guru Johnson from The Game in San Francisco. Alejandro Solano from WQAM in Miami. They all check in to tell us what they think about their franchise's opportunity to bring in LeBron James. The LeBron-chiller. Like The Bachelor, get it? We thought it was fun. That's next on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
It is Westwood One Sports. It is the Power Hour, the final hour of the show here on You Better You Bet. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. We are presented by BetMGM, live wherever you may be in the world, inside your Westwood One Sports app. Also inside the Odyssey app, AUDACY, live across North America on Sirius XM Channel 375, a continent that is now without any of the host nations alive in the World Cup after the U.S. lost miserably to Belgium last night. Coming up around 11:30, was there one decision made going into last night's game that created complacency and may have cost the U.S. their opportunity against Belgium? I think there was, and I'll tell you exactly what it was. Like I said, coming up around 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. But the best reality show this summer isn't Love Island. It's not another Real Housewives spinoff. It's the LeBronchular. Get it? Bachelor, LeBron, Bachelor, LeBronchular. Just go with it. We are going to bounce from Cleveland to Philly to Miami to San Francisco and get insight on where each of these franchises expects they rank in the LeBron James chase this summer, how it may work. We'll get to Alejandro Solana in Miami, Daryl Johnson in San Francisco, Jack Fritz in Philly, all on deck. But let's start with Nick Wilson, afternoons at 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. Nick, Cleveland has consistently been ranked at the top of the odds boards where you can bet on it. You look at Kalshi, it's the most likely destination. LeBron spending his summer back in Akron. All of these things seem to be adding up to LeBron heading back to Cleveland to put the perfect storybook ending on his career. How does this morning's news of the Donovan Mitchell Supermax affect whether LeBron can come back to Cleveland or not?
Well, I don't know that it's like a driving force that, the Cavs are trying to prove that Donovan's here long term just because, I think LeBron's going to be here max 2 years and then retire. But do I think it's a bad thing? Do I think it hurts? Absolutely not. I mean, this is another sign of a player wanting to stay in Cleveland. And it's funny, I have my friends in baseball circles that go, look at player movement in the NBA. Salary cap isn't going to fix the player movement in Major League Baseball. And I'm like, I've watched Donovan Mitchell sign 3 contracts, 1 in Utah and now 2 in Cleveland. That doesn't happen in baseball, a guy signing 3 major contracts in a small market. So it's a great sign for Cleveland, and I think it can only help the way, I guess maybe the Cavs and Donovan are perceived around the NBA, that they do have a long-term commitment, that it's not just wait till next summer and find out.
Nick, it was a whimper that the Cavs left the postseason with, but I have to think the fact that they come back with their lineup intact, they are happy with, especially bringing James Harden back. There's lots of people that don't believe that's a good thing, but the Cavs seemed sold on Harden and Mitchell together in the backcourt. And the question would be, where does LeBron fit into things? Is it Max Strus on the way out? Is it Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen? How does this lineup look if LeBron does, in fact, decide to come home to Cleveland?
So I think this has been fun to watch people try and figure out how it looks. It's funny. I think Max Strus, I'm glad you said his name because I might not have remembered to throw this one in there. I think Max Strus is the kind of guy that LeBron would love to play around because he is from that Miami culture and has brought some of that culture here to Cleveland. I think Jarrett Allen might be the odd man out if the Cavs can find a wing defender that maybe a big wing defender to play alongside LeBron. Another guy to watch would be Dennis Schroeder because Dennis is making about $14 million. And if LeBron comes here, you really don't need a backup point guard because you'll just kind of split those duties between Donovan, James Harden, and LeBron. So I think the Cavs, if they could find the perfect piece to go in that lineup that you mentioned, would definitely part off with Jared Allen. It feels like that makes a lot of sense. The problem is then that opens up a hole at center, or at the very least a backup big. Because I don't know if you've watched Thomas Bryant play. He is the ultimate heat check player and somebody that I do not want to see on the court in the playoffs ever again.
Nick Wilson of 92.3 The Fan, afternoons there in Cleveland with us as we play the LeBronchular, bouncing from city to city here on Westwood One Sports, trying to figure out where LeBron may land and how they feel about it in those towns. And I'll wrap you up, Nick, with this. If LeBron does come back to Cleveland, do the fans there, does the organization there, do the media there believe that it gives the Cavs a chance to get over the hump and win a title, and it's more than just a farewell tour?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think you're going to see a lot of people flip that switch and say the Cavs are now the favorite in the East, at least from the Cleveland perspective, because LeBron coming home has that implication. You know, I'm just coming off vacation, though, and I was thinking about it because I had heard a couple people, you know, that reached out to me and said, expect it, he's coming home, stuff like that. And you never know what's true and what isn't when it's with LeBron, just because he tends to move in silence. But I would just be happy that LeBron's back. Like, LeBron has played in Cleveland since, starting in when I was a junior in high school. And I've watched this guy go through every phase of his career. And so, as a Cavs fan, while I might, as a media member, go, all right, I think this makes you better equipped to win a championship, anything that happens with LeBron on his farewell tour is going to be gravy with me, because it's just been such an honor to watch this guy play basketball and grow as a human being and grow as a, all-time great. It would kind of break my heart if I watched it anywhere other than Cleveland. And if it is in Cleveland, man, I'm just going to sit back, kick my legs up for the next year or two and just really enjoy every second, because it finally will be the end for LeBron. And that's going to be a bittersweet moment for Cleveland, but hopefully we get that front row seat.
He's the co-host of the Afternoon Drive, Nick Wilson, alongside Jonathan Petterlin. You can listen to it inside your Odyssey app on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. Actually, one more thing before I let you run, Nick. Just give me a number, percentage chance that LeBron is with the Cavs this year.
I'll go 60%. And that 40% is entirely built by my self-doubt.
I love it. Nick, thanks so much for the Cleveland point of view as we play the LeBronchular. And here's to the Cavs, whether it's with LeBron or not, taking another step forward next year. Thanks again.
Appreciate you, bud.
Yep, Nick Wilson from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. 60%. I'm going to keep track of the math here and see how much over 100% we end up at after talking to folks from Miami, San Francisco, Cleveland, and now Philly. My good friend Jack Fritz, afternoons on 94 WIP in Philly, joins us to play the LeBronchular. First things first, Jack. That name, clever, cute, or it doesn't really fit? Sounds more like a sea creature of some sort. LeBron, the Bachelor. You're with me, right?
Sounds like a sea creature, but I do appreciate the effort. I mean, like LeBron roulette. I don't know, but
that's okay.
If you gave me more time, I could have thought of something, but I like where your head's at for sure. Are we talking about Paul Skeens struggles, or are we talking about LeBron today?
Okay, that's it for Jack Fritz here on Westwood. No, I'm gonna let that slide, Jack.
I'm just messing.
Yeah, I know. You're from Philly. If you don't take shots at people when they're not looking, by all means, it would be out of character. So let me start with this. If I would have asked you a week ago how you felt about the Sixers going into this season, and if you thought adding LeBron James had any level of reality to it, what would you have said?
Well, I would have said the Sixers were dead. No one was interested in them. And because me and Spike, my co-host on the afternoon show, he hosts the biggest Sixers podcast in the world. And he was even saying, even our people are kind of just out because there really is no hope. It's like you have to wait for the Embiid thing to almost run its course before you can move on. And Edge comes fun and Maxi's fun, but man, they felt really, really dead. And then out of nowhere, they traded for Jaylen Brown, who, I don't know, I have my problems with just from the standpoint of, he's a ball hog and doesn't move the basketball, but still he's like a top 15 player in the NBA. It's exciting. It's awesome. He's a top 6 MVP guy, and all of a sudden there's this new life that feels like it's been breathed back into the Sixers. So they felt dead, and then if you told me they were getting LeBron, I would have said, you're crazy. And I sit here today, and I still don't think they're going to get him, but I certainly believe that if he wants to win a title, I do think Philadelphia gives him a very, very good opportunity to do that. So it's really, really interesting, and from a sports talk radio perspective, I couldn't thank the king more.
Jack Fritz of 94 WIP afternoons there in Philly, the WIP afternoon show with Ike, Spike, and Fritz. Check them out inside your Odyssey app. What's the reaction from fans? Because LeBron, I remember back, I think it was January when the Lakers were in Philly and they beat the Sixers. And LeBron almost waxed poetic about coming to Philly over the years and how he felt about Philadelphia fans. Is there a mutual respect there? Or are Philly fans doing their thing where they're kind of casting a little bit of a side eye, like, do we really want to buy into this or not?
Well, I think there's a lot of people here who before last week were not huge LeBron fans. And then the second it was like he might be a Sixer, there's been a big turn of like, well, he is one of the best players of all time. And, just really talking himself into LeBron. But I wouldn't say it's like this overwhelming go get him, got to have him kind of thing, because we kind of went through this in 2018 when he was a free agent and we were, he was visiting the local private schools. Those reports were out there. Someone saw him at Wawa, and then the charade of they flew the Sixers officials out to L.A. to meet with them, and they didn't even send LeBron or Rich Paul. It was like the guys below them. So I think like we've kind of went through this charade before. I think there's this like skepticism, feeling like maybe we're being used. So I think people would be obviously thrilled, but I think it's more skeptical than this big groundswell of we're going to get LeBron.
I bet LeBron gets a salad at Wawa, which is kind of blasphemous.
I don't know what his order would be.
It'd be a salad.
I don't know if he's a gas station. I don't know if he's a gas station food guy, to be honest with you.
That's probably a solid point. Yeah. Jack Fritz of 94 WIP in Philly with us, playing the LeBron-chiller as we try to figure out what it would look like in each city that LeBron may be headed to. We've rolled through Cleveland, and now we're on Philly. And I guess the question is this, Jack. If everybody's feeling that much better about the Sixers now after the Jaylen Brown deal, and I have to think everybody's feeling that much better. It sounds like they are. Does anybody in Philly look at, whether we're talking fans, media, organization, do they look at LeBron as maybe the final piece to a championship puzzle? Or do they look at this team and say, well, no, we're already capable of contending just based on everything else that's happened in the Eastern Conference? Like, we believe we can gun for the Knicks now, even if we don't have LeBron.
No, I think that people still would view LeBron as the missing piece. I just don't know if they want to deal with the LeBron thing, where it feels like everything's about LeBron and we kind of have this new star in Jaylen Brown. Maybe we want to see that grow a little bit before just jumping into the LeBron James sweepstakes. I think people would view him as the missing piece. It kind of reminds you a little bit of when Moses joined the team, in 82, where he was viewed as the missing piece. I don't think Jaylen Brown is the missing piece. I think he's a key part of it. But all of a sudden, like, if you had LeBron and he can, the appeal to me with LeBron would be that he could just be the point guard, and he wouldn't be relied upon to score necessarily. Obviously, we know he can score, but this team doesn't have a great ball handler. And if you're LeBron, you're like, hold on, I can bring the ball up. I'm not going to be relied upon to score. I got Tyrese Maxey I can throw the ball to. He can go score. BJ Edgecombe, similar thing. Then you add Jaylen Brown and Joel Embiid. Like, it's a pretty dang good situation for a 41-year-old to where he doesn't feel like he has to do everything in the world to win a basketball game. So, I think some people have a little bit of a LeBron fatigue because he's been around so long. Certainly my co-hosts on the afternoon show both loathe LeBron, even though they know that it would bring great content. But I do think that nationally, even, I think the Sixers are being a little undersold as what LeBron could do for this team.
All right, before I let you run, Jack, just give me a number. Percentage chance LeBron is a Sixer to start next season.
I'll put it at about 10%. 10%.
Okay. 10%
Not super
chance.
high, but definitely a shot.
So Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber, so you're telling me there's a chance level of chance.
Yeah. Well, a little higher than that. I believe that was 1 in a million.
That's a good point. It was.
One in a million.
Good job remembering the Dumb and Dumber math, Jack. It was great to catch up with you, my friend. We'll do it again soon. Thanks.
Well, if there's ever a movie that's on my brain wavelengths, it's certainly Dumb and Dumber. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you.
See you, Jack Fritz, afternoons on 94 WIP in Philly. So he says 10%. Let's pivot to one of the first places people were talking about when LeBron decided to not return to LA. It was right up the coast in the Bay Area as we play the LeBronchular. Who will accept this rose? Who will get the final rose from LeBron as he looks for a home for the 2026-27 NBA season? Daryl, the Guru Johnson joins us middays, 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. You can listen to Steiny and Guru inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY. Daryl, good morning. Thank you for jumping in with us here to play the LeBronchular. And it feels a little bit like Golden State, while they're still solidly there in the LeBron sweepstakes. A lot of the heat has come off their name after the initial assertions, a week and a half ago, that was going to be the landing spot. How's it feel in the Bay Area?
Chris Mack, thanks for the invite, and I'll tell you how it feels. I'm a big movie buff, but I feel like Warrior fans feel like we're watching something about Mary. And LeBron is Mary. We're all in line, hoping he chooses us. And you are correct. Last week, I didn't believe LeBron was leaving L.A. You know, I think he's a narcissist. I know he is, but I appreciate what he is as a ball player. And when Draymond Green opted out, which nobody expected, they got a relationship. And, you know, Steph Curry and LeBron played on the Olympic team. So we bought that, Warrior fans, hook, line, and sinker. And I'm thinking to myself, this thing might really happen. But I was just listening to your conversation. I look at the Sixers. If I'm LeBron, with all that young talent, their roster's better than what we have here in the Bay. And it didn't happen the next 48 to 72 hours. And now I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, we're thinking he's not coming here. And now you look at this roster, which is devoid of what I like to say, Chris, and call Thundercats. I don't know if LeBron's coming to the Bay, and every second that goes by without that announcement, we're feeling like, you know what, he might not be coming.
Daryl, doesn't this feel a little bit like just the comfortable option for LeBron? Go play with Steph, play with Dre, Steve Kerr will coach him up a little bit here and there. It feels like you've been on vacation for a week and you've done a million different things and you finally just decide, you know what, we're just going to lay by the pool for the final day of vacation. That's what it feels like the Warriors are as an option for LeBron.
No doubt about it, but I will say this. The guy's 41 years old and he still got something in the tank. We all know that. Steph Curry came out of nowhere, and I thought LeBron James, it's just me being a NBA psychologist, I thought he resented Steph because how many rings, let's be honest, would LeBron James have if Steph Curry and the Warriors didn't come out anywhere to get those 4? So I'll leave that there. But now you're telling me, Chris, on the back 9, he's going to come join the Golden State Warriors and Steph and share. I'm being proactive. If they were to win and he was to get the 5th title, he's got to share that number 5 with Steph Curry. So to me, I just think LeBron James is a killer, and he wouldn't want to do it for the fun of it, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Daryl, the Guru Johnson, catching middays on 95.7 The Game in San Francisco as a part of Steiny and Guru inside your Odyssey app. So if it doesn't make them legit championship contenders, and I don't know if you think it does or not, Daryl, what is what is the point of this for Golden State? Is it just to sell more tickets towards the end of the Steph Draymond era? Is it because do they actually have a belief inside the organization that LeBron would elevate them to Western Conference contender status in a conference that already possesses San Antonio, OKC, and Denver for that matter?
No, that's a great question. And my partner, Matt Steinmetz, always makes fun of me every day because he calls me a dreamer. And I've just stepped back and looked at it like 31-year-old LeBron James with this Warrior roster, he could carry the load. We would have action in the West. But at 41, and with what we don't have in regard to Moses Moody at the start of the season, if at all, Jimmy Butler missing a big part of the season, I just don't see it. But you got to, that's the million-dollar question. Why and what would he get coming here? And for your point being made about the seats, Steph Curry, when he plays and is not affected by that runner's knee, he's still box office. But damn it, I got to believe the King still wants to win. The Warriors must think amongst themselves with Draymond Green, Steph Curry, that if LeBron James can come here, be the grown-up in the room, handle the ball, because the Warriors were just killed by turnovers last year. Mike Dunleavy and Steve Kerr at every turn have talked about, they got to put an emphasis on that. LeBron James does do that. But outside of that, we don't have any bigs. We don't got Thundercats on the wing, so I'm hoping and dreaming that he comes here, but I just don't see it if he does sign, what that does for us outside of the clicks, the coverage. But with Steph Curry, we already have that, and you can look at how many national televised games the Warriors had last year without LeBron. So to me, that itch was already scratched last year. Like, we don't need him for that. We're trying to get out of the damn play-in.
Daryl the Guru Johnson from 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. Before I let you run, Daryl, and enjoy the rest of your morning, I've been asking everybody to this point as we play the LeBronchular to give me just a number, percentage chance LeBron is with the Warriors next year.
I'm a nerd, so I love uniforms and numbers. There was an old quarterback in Seattle, David Craig, and he wore number 17. So I'm going to go 17%, Chris Mack. 17%, and shout out Chris Mullen, 17% that LeBron James is a Golden State Warrior. And I hope I'm wrong.
Great stuff, Daryl. We appreciate the time. I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. You have a good day. Thanks.
You too. Daryl the Guru Johnson. Catch him middays on 95.7 The Game, Steiny and Guru in San Francisco, inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY. We have crisscrossed the country from Cleveland to Philly, all the way out to the West Coast and the Bay Area. And now we take it down to South Florida to talk to Alejandro Solana. Afternoons, 104.3 WQAM in Miami. Alejandro, good morning. Thanks for joining us on the season finale of the LeBronchular. Who will accept this rose? Who will LeBron choose? Let me ask you first and foremost, Pat Riley said he left a key under the doormat for LeBron. Is Pat Riley really willing to go all in to bring LeBron in? And does he think it makes the Heat championship contenders?
Hey, great to join you. I'm glad you didn't call it South Beach to upset any of the Miami fans who take that so serious. I think Pat Riley is willing to go all in. This, to me, always felt like Pat Riley's last hurrah, his last opportunity to go all in on star power. Nobody loves a star. Nobody loves a whale to pull out the harpoon and bring in the whale more than Pat Riley. And arguably at this stage of his career, with the questions kind of looming over the Jimmy Butler era, where it felt, at least locally here, like Miami was never able to maximize that era, and missing out on Kevin Durant and Giannis in the past and the Damian Lillard trade. This felt like Pat Riley's final opportunity to go and successfully harpoon his whale. He did that with Giannis Antetokounmpo, giving up a massive amount of capital and assets moving forward into the future. But why stop there if you're Pat Riley? He's done this before. He's been able to lure LeBron down to South Florida in the past. And to me, he's not looking just for Giannis. He's looking for the big prize. He's looking for the full course. And that's teaming up with LeBron James, and once again, coming away from this free agency offseason period as the big winners in the NBA.
Alejandro Solana, afternoons, 104.3 WQAM in Miami, inside your Odyssey app as well. Let me ask you this, Alejandro. Do Heat fans, the organization, those of you in the media down there in South Florida, how legitimate is the worry that even if they go out and get LeBron, backing up the Giannis Antetokounmpo deal, they go out and get LeBron, and that's great. You've got Bam, you've got Giannis, you've got LeBron. they still don't have anything in the backcourt.
Yeah, and I think, the question about spacing around Bam and Giannis is a fair one. Miami did go and they did get Tim Hardaway Jr. He's coming off arguably his best season in terms of shooting and percentages last year. And you have to consider the fact that he played alongside the Joker, and that's going to help any shooter, right? Just to create that spacing, create those open looks, and create that dynamic where if you're a shooter and you're having a good season, the Joker is going to find you and there's going to be opportunities for it. I think there's a similar path to that playing alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo this year as long as he remains healthy. And that's another concern internally and locally down here as well. I work on the Miami Heat radio network as the pre-halftime and post-game host. And obviously the excitement is there, but it's a cautious optimism right now, considering you don't know what that final roster is going to look like. But I think the additions of Bobby Portis, who, to me is that ultimate glue guy who can also help the front court and can definitely be used as a stretch big and to help with the spacing. That's a good addition there. And when you talk about the backcourt, I mean, Miami was very happy with how Davion Mitchell looked a season ago. He's not a superstar point guard. He's not an all-star point guard, but he's willing to accept any role that's given to him. If he's just got to be that on-ball defensive stopper, which he's known for, he's willing to do that. But last year, as a starting point guard, he was top 5 in the NBA in points to assist ratio. So that's something that they're hoping will continue to grow and maybe see another level to his game expand. And on the other end, you also have a guy like Pelle Larsson, who last year in his second year was a second-round pick a couple seasons ago, and he took a big step forward as well. So I don't think there's as much worry about depth as maybe those outside of South Florida feel like there is. I'm not saying this roster, is the best roster in the NBA around Giannis Antetokounmpo or Bam Adebayo. They've still got to figure out, Eric Spoelstra has his hands full figuring out how to maximize that front court. But when you just talk about Giannis, when he's healthy, when he's able to be on the floor for most of the season, guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., guys like Davion Mitchell, guys like Bobby Portis and Pelle Larsson, they kind of get pushed forward playing alongside Giannis and everything he's able to do with drawing bodies into the paint. So to me, if you do end up keeping Andrew Wiggins, and even if LeBron does or doesn't come here, the idea that you can play through Giannis and you can have him just be the guy that's been in the paint religiously throughout his career and open up opportunities for other, I think the Heat are feeling pretty good about where they're at right now. Would they like to add some more shooting around Giannis Antetokounmpo? There's no doubt about it. And there's several names that have been tossed out there, whether it's Chris Middleton or maybe Klay Thompson on a buyout. I mean, there's just so many names still out there that are available. But I think right now, the mood here in South Florida is that this roster is being built the right way. And yeah, there's some work to do, but it doesn't look like there's a tremendous gap if Giannis can stay healthy between the Miami Heat or anybody else in the Eastern Conference.
Alejandro, before I let you run, I've done this with everybody else so far. I got to ask, just give me a number, percentage chance LeBron James is with the Miami Heat this season.
I think it's a 40% chance. To me, it always felt, gut feeling, by the way, this isn't a report, but the gut feeling to me was always that, look, the Warriors' idea is fun, right? Objectively, as a basketball fan, who wouldn't want to see LeBron and Steph Curry team up out in San Francisco? But I always felt like this ultimately comes down to LeBron James wanting to win another ring, put himself in a position where he can win another ring. And the best place to do that is not in the Western Conference, it's in the Eastern Conference. I understand the appeal of a Philadelphia 76ers squad, even the appeal of a Boston Celtics squad as well. But to me, and the Knicks, right? I think the Knicks, because of the defending champs, have to be thrown into just the appeal factor. But to me, it was always going to come down to Cleveland, where the storybook ending makes sense, or the Miami Heat, where I believe the fit basketball-wise was always going to be better for LeBron James. So I'm giving it Cleveland 60% just because it's Cleveland, just because he's the guy who built that arena literally and won them a ring, and he's forever Cleveland's guy, but also the Miami Heat, where it's proven He came to Miami. He won 2 rings. That's 2 more. That's 1 more than he won in LA. That's 1 more than he won in Cleveland, playing in half the seasons that he did in both of those places. So to me, he knows what he's getting here in Pat Riley in a front office that can build around him, that can put a contender around him, that can continue to improve the roster year after year like they did with Shane Battier and Birdman and Ray Allen and all the other guys they put around him to win those 2 rings. It's 60% Cleveland. It's 40% Miami. And I still think that there's moves to be made that can entice LeBron James, and I wouldn't put it past Pat Riley to be able to figure out those moves.
Great stuff, Alejandro. We appreciate the time so much. We'll catch up again soon.
Anytime. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, Alejandro Solana, afternoons, alongside Channing Crowder on 104.3 WQAM in Miami. We ended up greater than 100%, which I thought would happen. Nick Wilson in Cleveland gave us 60. Alejandro in Miami gave us 40. Daryl the Guru Johnson in San Francisco gave us 17. And Jack Fritz in Philly gave us 10. So, not bad. 127% chance that LeBron ends up somewhere. Coming up, what key decision may have created complacency for the U.S. men's national team going into their meltdown last night against Belgium? I'll tell you what I think it was next here on Westwood One Sports.
grabbed by Unai Simon, who remains.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Ian Dark on the call on Fox. Unai Simon with a big save on Cristiano Ronaldo, another legend who's now retired from international competition, out as Portugal lost to Spain yesterday. Your Defensive Player of the Week, Unai Simon, Spanish goaltender. Sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed services, veterans, and their families. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission. Yeah, Ronaldo, Dunsky. Also, Neymar for Brazil after the loss to Norway. How about Martino Puccio? When I pressed him at the last second, it was just about an hour ago, we had him here on Westwood One Sports. He had Norway going to the final. I love it. I mean, I said it yesterday, and look, I understand. We're all going to do that thing where after pretending to be soccer fans for the last 3 weeks, those of us that are casuals, who are just sports fans in general, are going to slowly lose track of the World Cup. Let's be honest. I mean, here in the States anyway, like, I'm going on vacation Thursday. And I'm not going to be going out of my way, unless we happen to wander into a place that has the World Cup on. I'm not going out of my way to watch it while I'm on vacation. I'm laying on a beach. Okay? Now, even if you're not going on vacation, I think there will be a lot of casuals, a lot of American sports fans that'll go, oh, well, that was fun. All-Star games next week, right? Who's in the home run derby? When's training camp start? Where's my Phil Steele magazine? You know, we're going to get back to all the usual mid to late summer activities. Baseball, getting ready for NFL training camps, and preparing ourselves for college football. Maybe I just held up a mirror to myself, basically. I do think there was a decision made that almost created complacency in the U.S. men's national team. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. And I think it was the decision by FIFA to suspend the one-game ban on Balogun. I think that created, if you just look at the American team last night, especially early, before they got down, before their backs were against the wall, they looked like they expected the ball to be rolled out and the game was going to just come to them. Oh, Flo Balogun's back out there. All right, let's go. We're good. Not that that was an active part of their mindset, but I think subconsciously, it was almost like they'd won a little bit of a victory. And for the Belgians, conversely, it was, especially on road turf, right? For the Belgians, it was, are you seeing these Americans? Yeah, they got their best player back. Yeah, president or something. I don't know. He's buddies with FIFA. They got their best player back. They think they're going to just walk right through us. Let's go show the Americans how we play footy in Europe. And then they did it. They were fairly clinical. I mean, it helped that the U.S. stood around and watched a lot in the first half. But I don't think you get that same sense of, and it did, it looked like complacency. I don't think you get that same sense of complacency from a team that's going out there without their best goal scorer. I think they would have been locked in right from the start. And so, in essence, I think if you don't get the reversal of the Balogun decision, maybe you get a completely different game last night. Because go back and look at the way the Americans played when they had some desperation at the beginning of the second half. They took the game to Belgium. They had a good bit of the momentum there for 10, 15 minutes? Couldn't finish off any of their opportunities, but they looked like the team we had seen in the first 4 matches of this World Cup. Aggressive, attacking, doing everything they could to create chances. As opposed to in the first half, when they looked confused as to why aren't things just working for us? How come when I kick the ball over there, they picked it off again? Now, look, a lot of that has to do with the level of competition. I don't think anyone should make a mistake and compare Paraguay, Australia, Turkey, and Bosnia with Belgium. I said this repeatedly yesterday. Belgium is the number 9 team in the country. It's not going to be that easy. They are one of the European big boys, even if they are older and slower than they have been in a long, long time. But there was almost a sense, I can appreciate that sense from fans like you and I. I can appreciate that sense of, oh, we got this. We're flowing. Feeling good. Yeah, the boys got it tonight. But when you're the Americans and you still haven't gotten over that hump, and you're playing the number 9 team in the world, you better come out firing on all cylinders right from the start. And they didn't. They stood around and watched like, oh, well, we got this. Our big gun's back. We'll be all right. I really think overturning Balogun's ban for last night's game ended up creating a sense of complacency for the U.S. men's national team. And it's why they came out so flat. It's why they got behind. And it's why they struggled to get themselves connected to the game, as Mauricio Pochettino put it afterwards in the postgame. Coming up, I'll get you a bet for tonight, baseball related, just for you, Bill in Toronto. And we'll get you our 3 favorite moments of the show, our 3 stars of the day, next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I don't like the fact that I had a bet all cooked up for today that I wanted to give you, and now I'm catching weird vibes about it. Tell you about that in a second, plus our 3 favorite moments of the show, our 3 stars of the day coming up to wrap things up here. It is Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. You can still pick them inside your BetMGM app. Throughout the World's Game, you can predict what will happen each day for a chance to win bonus bets, answer questions each day of the tournament to make predictions on what will go down. If you get the most picks right that day, you'll win a share of bonus bets inside your BetMGM app. Download it today. Make it legendary. Please gamble responsibly. So I had Zach Wheeler over his K-prop all cooked up for today. Here's the problem. Zach Wheeler is listed as the probable starter at MLB.com. He's not listed at any of the books, including BetMGM. And so what is going on? Zach Wheeler is scheduled to start today. Does somebody know something that we do not know? All I'm going to say is Zach Wheeler, despite only going 4 2/3 last time out against the Pirates, also struck out 10. And over his last 6 starts, he struck out 44 in 36 1/3. Tonight, he gets the team that strikes out at a greater rate than any other team in baseball, the Cincinnati Reds. So when and if it does get posted, I will be taking Zach Wheeler over strikeouts tonight inside the BetMGM app. All right, let's get to our 3 favorite moments of the day. Time for our 3 stars. Let's go.
3.
Who's your replacement for him? I'd love to hear this.
Right.
Who wants to walk into this situation after this guy just got the most wins for the U.S. men's national team? 2002 was the last time they even made a quarterfinal, and then prior to that was 1930. Can we please stop?
Martino Puccio, when I asked him if Mauricio Pochettino was going to end up being scapegoated for this American loss last night. Yeah, they've got the right guy in place. I can't put the players' lack of preparedness for the biggest game of their lives on the manager, because the style worked the entire way up until last night when the guys seemingly did not show up. So I'm right there with Martino on Pochettino coming back as the U.S. manager. Our number 2 star of the day.
2.
But I feel like Warrior fans feel like we're watching something about Mary. And LeBron is Mary. We're all in line hoping he chooses us. I don't know if LeBron's coming to the Bay, and every second that goes by without that announcement, we're feeling like, you know what, he might not be coming.
I mean, for being out on the West Coast and us getting him on the air at 8:15 in the morning, it was fantastic stuff from Daryl the Guru Johnson, who you can catch middays on 95.7 The Game in San Francisco inside your Odyssey app, as he was a part of our LeBronchular segment. Gave the Warriors a 17% chance of landing LeBron James. But I think we all look at each other, Daryl included, and we say, why are the Warriors doing this? Why is LeBron doing this? Major fallback option vibes, I think, if Cleveland and Miami and Philly even don't work out. Finally, our number 1 star of the day.
1.
Pulisic was, when healthy, he was good. But that wasn't enough, and certainly he wasn't good last night. And again, the injury is part of that conversation. More than likely, that will help explain it. But it can't always be something.
John Morosi, who contributed to Sirius XM FC's coverage of the World Cup, will continue to do so on Christian Pulisic. Can't always be something. I know Martino Puccio pushed back hard against the notion that Pulisic can't be the guy when we talk to him, but I tend to lean more towards John's point of view on this. Pulisic isn't the guy who, I don't think he is anyway, the guy who leads you to the promised land. He can be a part of a formula. I just think we've come to see it past that he is not the guy. He is not, it's kind of like we talked about LeBron over the last couple of weeks. He's not the keystone, cornerstone piece to a championship squad. Pulisic is not the keystone to the U.S. men's national team getting over the hump. It's a piece to the puzzle, just like LeBron and wherever he ends up. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks to the whole crew behind the scenes for making it work as always. Mike, Kenny, Laura, Tyler, Bill, Black and Abdallah up next. Keep it right here for everything going on this summer. It's Westwood One Sports.